Welcome to my end of April update on the allotment. It's a windy day today and I'll keep you posted now about how I'm getting on with my fruit trees, blossom blight. I'll have a look at the strawberries and the beds, see how things are getting on and follow advice from you good people. Thank you, enjoy.
Finally discovered what was wrong with my Oullins Gage, and the blossoms here, and this blossom is okay, and this should give me some gage plums on the Oullins, but these plants are susceptible to something which is called blossom wilt. You can see it there. Apparently it's caused by a fungus, and it's stored in canker, any place where there's a canker or where the wood's been infected, or branches that have been cut, and it falls and the spores fall onto the blossom, hit the blossom during this time, and the only way around it is, I'm going to treat it today, is to get rid of all of the parts of the tree like this where the wilt's been. I've got 3 of these gage trees. At first I thought mistakenly it was frost damage. It isn't. Oullins Gage is frost hardy in the zone of England I live in, the Midlands, so there's no reason for this to be hit unless there's very severe frost. But obviously what's happened is, unawares to me, there has been this fungal infection, and I think it's called Canidia, and as far as I'm aware the only treatment is to cut out the diseased parts. Some people mention copper sprays. I won't be using them. I shall be spraying the tree afterwards, after it's been pruned. Now you can prune plum trees in April, and then I'm going to spray it with milk, water and detergent with some bicarb, and cut out all the diseased wood.
This is the first set of treatment that I've given then to my gage, having identified the culprit as being blossom blight. And basically what I've done is now thinned out for the first time these trees, which went in late 2012, so they're 5 years old, probably 3 years old when I got them. And basically I've just started to open the Oullins Gage out, and there's still blossom left on this. I've removed as much as the blight as I can and opened up the tree for the first time, and I've used a mixture of 1 part full fat milk, 2 parts water. I put some bicarb in there as well, that's 3 teaspoons of bicarb, and also some detergent. And I've particularly found that the trunks of these trees, there's 3 of them, have this problem where they've been breaking up, which I believe is where the fungus has got in. And this particular type of fungus species, people say it basically is the cause of my blossom blight. At first I thought it was frost damage and I was wrong, and now I really do need to prune these trees effectively. I began the pruning program now. This is late April, so the 3 gage trees all had the same treatment, Oullins Gage, and I have got pollinators beside them. I've got other plum trees, such as I've got Victoria and Sar, and I do cross-pollinate myself with a little artist's watercolour brush. I do find pollinators, even though I have got pollinating plants for pollinators here. I'm going to get some red currant, flowering red currant bush here, down here as well, because that will bring in early pollinators. But I have got comfrey at the front of the plot, and that does bring pollinators. This is the type of diseased leaf which I'm removing from my black currants, and I know I've got pear rust and also blossom blight on my Oullins Gage, but basically I'm taking these off. This is my Mexican orange blossom, first year I've ever had success with this plant and the allotment. This is garlic mustard, which medieval people used for culinary purposes, and it does, when you actually rub the leaves, it does give you the smell of garlic. So they did use whatever they could find around them if it was edible, and it's found here close to the River Trent, but it's in flower at the moment.
This is one of the damsons I've put in, grown from seed, and I recently read somewhere online, which made me laugh. It said, plant plums for your sons, plant damsons for your grandsons. Well, they might well be correct with that saying, because this is now in its 3rd year, and I would say it's approximately, well, it's under a foot high, so no rush with a damson, is there? Following advice from people about what to do about my squares, I've opted for the following. I broke up as much of the clay as I could, and then used a lump hammer stroke sledgehammer. I've put some gypsum into it, I've added some lime into it, and on top I've now put some compost, and I've got some proper compost, which is Irish compost. It's got some peat based materials in it. I've put some rotted horse manure in, and I shall be adding some more rotted horse manure as well as some more compost before planting out in May. So thanks to everyone who gave me advice, but remember, this is only the 1st year that this soil has had this treatment, and previous years I've just dug it and planted it basically. All apple trees have been sprayed with bicarb with some detergent and water, and also any signs of fungus have been treated with milk. You get 1 part of full fat milk to 2 parts water to a couple of drops of detergent. Apparently the milk protein reacts in the sunlight and makes it a very hostile environment for fungal spores, for the mycelium, and they just do not like it. So I'm quite pleased that I would not normally, if I was growing a grafted apple tree at home, I would not get this much blossom. And also by making sure that it got pruned quite heavily, and I'm going to, obviously it's a very young sapling still on a dwarf rootstock, I'm going to really give it a good pruning as well at the end of the season. But I'm hoping for some success just by using these simple remedies and having quite a variety of apples for cross-pollination. All of my pear trees, without exception, were affected by pear rust, and I stripped as many of the leaves as I could from them in order to try and contain the disease. Apparently the juniper bush is a vector, is a carrier, a host if you like, for this spore. It's wind-borne. So then I went on a spraying program over winter, sprayed as much as I could of the trees. I used a combination of bicarb to get rid of ants, which seem to like these fruit trees. Apparently they feed off the sap that aphids have and treat the aphids like some sort of milking cows for the sap. And that worked because ants hate bicarbonate solution because they make an acid, the bicarb of course being the opposite scale of the pH, being an alkali. This, I'm hoping, will give me some pears this year. I've been around with my little artist paintbrush, cross-pollinating pears where possible, because many of them aren't, unless it's a conference variety, I believe many aren't self-fertile. So I don't know how it's going to get on with me, but my pear trees do look healthier this year than they did last year. So fingers crossed for some pears this year. With any luck, these will now be fertilised on my pear tree. The strawberries have been propagated by me on runners. I know you're only supposed to let them have 1 runner, but I've let mine go quite wild because I didn't have much of a stock, so I've reduced crop sizes due to that. But last year I really did enjoy the strawberries, and here on a clay soil they give a really sort of rich, tangy taste. It's not like shop-bought strawberries at all, and some of them benefit from the fact that they are protected, and I have, like the previous document left behind, aluminium lined, where they've got polystyrene inside them, boards sticking up to make a protective place for them. This area is out in the open and they've still done okay. So I'm hoping that these strawberries my first flush of flowers are going to give me a bit of a crop soon.
Thanks for watching my update. Please leave any comments and I'll read them, get back to you, and thanks for the advice from people. I really appreciate the help from the community. Thank you. It's a lovely pink sunset glow here.